Hey, what's going on, fam? Got a quick trade recap for you on ticker symbol PROG. Traded this bad boy twice today. First trade on this one netted me a just over 7.5% gain. The second trade netted me over almost a 26% gain and still got some on the table going into tomorrow. Swung a tiny bit of what I had left. Took a lot of profits in the after hours. We'll jump into that in just a second. We're looking at the daily chart right now, and a couple of key levels that I'm going to point out to you for support and resistance are going to be as follows. Actually, I'm going to add one more that was a support level that I was looking at this morning, which was right there. So where we're at now, and some of the intraday levels I'm going to switch over to in a sec, but the first level that I obviously need to take a look at is this 110 support, which happens to line up with this trade line, which is my EMA 8. The next level of resistance, so now we talked about support, let's talk about resistance, was this 147 area, and that's just this gap fill up to this 147 level. Above that, we got 175. And then above that, we got 215, 237. So these are some major levels that I'm looking at above for profit target areas. I'm a day trader, guys, so I'm not intending to hold this for more than a day or two if I swing it. But for the most part, I'm just kind of getting in and out within the day. Some other traders may have some other strategies that they're going to deploy with this type of stock, but for me personally, that's my goal for this, was to just lock in profits, take the meat of the move, and get out. The stock has 102 million share float, just over 102. We traded 117.9, so 118 today. So that is a beast of a day. It's just a ton of volume, as you can see. Just looking at the history of this stock, that is the most volume the stock has ever traded. As we are starting to trend up, the volume on the buying days is increasing quite substantially. Another indication of bullish momentum is the fact that we are now standing above, or holding above rather, this EMA 8, which is this blue trend line. This is my daily trade line, and we are also we have breached through the 50-day moving average right here, which is this pink line that's coming down. Next level up, this 215 area lines up with this 100-day moving average, which is starting to sweep down here. So that's going to be another area of resistance. So if you're long this, you're going to want to start thinking about taking some profits off at 215 should we get there tomorrow. Then above that, we have some flat top resistance, flat bottom rather, where this acted as a level of support for a bunch of various trading days for weeks on end here, and then weeks on end here. So those are going to be some really important levels to keep in mind as we start to jump into this thing from a daily trade perspective. From an intraday, I've got a couple more levels that I'm going to add out, which kind of led me to target areas within the intraday chart itself. So some of these are gonna stand firm. Obviously, I'm not going to change those, but when I flip over to my intraday chart in a second, you're going to see some added levels, and those are just there because those are intraday levels that are important to me. I've had this thing on watch for a couple of days. The first day I had this on watch was yesterday, and we're just going to jump into the pre-market and the previous day's trading. So I started to take notice of this thing when we made this move up, and this was a 15% move that we got on the 29th, and I didn't trade it this day. I was just watching it, and it was of interest the following day, and we did get this gap up, and that was obviously very interesting for me to see in the pre-market session. Was looking for the previous day's higher close to act as an area of support, which is that 110 level. Back to that daily chart, I have that marked off right here. So that was the area I was looking for support. We didn't quite go all the way down to it, but we got pretty darn close to it. But the pre-market session really proved to be strong because we weren't able to actually get down and fully test that. So I actually didn't get into the trade the first thing this morning, but I did watch this price action and some of the basically what we had here, which is a double bottom gap up. I'm going to go ahead and remove my pre-market data, and the reason I do that, if you watch my previous videos, is because I don't like to let my aggregations of my VWAP and my intraday trade line, this EMA 8. I don't want any pre-market data to affect the aggregation period of those technical indicators, so I do remove the pre-market data. Some people leave it on. That's not for me, but hey, to each their own, whatever works for you. So now I'm going to flip over to the setup that I saw, and that we're going to add this resistance level of 140. As you can see, this came into play because this was the initial morning high off the bell, where we ran right up into it on big volume. and then we came back down and retested this 125, 120 area. Again, was probably looking for something slightly deeper in terms of a pullback, but we never got it. So that's a sign of strength. That's a good thing. Next thing I do is I pull out my Fibonacci retracements and draw those up from the previous day's close to the current intraday high, and take notice of some of the things that we're looking at as we start to approach the VWAP trade line as it started to cross over. We have a couple of key support areas, or a couple key trend and technical indicators that lined up perfectly to validate this move going to the upside. And the first one that I saw was this 23.6 Fibonacci level, which lined up with VWAP and the trade line. So I actually missed this move here as we started to push up on an increase in volume. Really nice volume increase. We got that nice push up and broke through the initial morning high right here, and then broke through and consolidated right above it. This is your essentially one of my favorite setups, and what we refer to as an ABCD pattern for the most part. This is a kind of a textbook version of an ABCD pattern. And when you see these types of patterns break up and hold over the initial morning high and consolidate into like a flag formation above it, that is a really solid sign that we are going to get some continuation as we start to build some consolidation in that level. So was looking for that 140 support. We dipped a little bit below it, but not to be too concerned about it. Another thing, from a volume perspective, when you get that breakup through the initial morning high and a consolidation above it, is you want to see that consolidation on lower volume than the breakup through the high of the day, or the initial morning high in this case. So that's exactly what we got from a volume perspective. Very, very picture perfect in so many ways. So I went ahead and I took an entry right on this red candle here at $1.43 was my first entry on this right there. And my stop loss was a break below 140. I think I gave myself down to about $1.35, $1.30. Essentially, if we came down and breached VWAP, that to me was an indication that we were, not looking as strong as I thought we were, and some downside risk there, but was keeping the risk pretty tight, and that allowed me to get into a full-size position. Because I had such a tight stop loss, and because of the pattern itself. Again, this is one of my favorite setups to trade, and when they happen, they have a very high probability rate of a follow through to the upside. So that's exactly what I was looking for. So on this move, when this consolidation, we started to get this breakout through this downtrend resistance, which is essentially the flag on this nice increase in volume. So I set my first sell limit order out here at $1. Let me just look at my numbers here. $1.47 was my first take profit, which was right up in front of this in front of this previous high. So you always want to take a little profit off in front of a previous high, because if that high fails to break through on an increase in volume, you've now mitigated some risk to the downside by taking a little profit off the table. It's always a good thing, just protecting that downside risk. That's the name of the game. So right in front of that level, I took my first piece of profit. In this case, that was a 50% profit target. If you've watched my previous videos, I'm not going to get too deep into it, but the reason I do that is because of the overall market conditions we find ourselves in now. If you're looking at the SPY, for instance, while this trade was happening, the small cap market hasn't been truly affected so much by the crazy movement in the SPY and just the bearish sentiment overall in the markets, but you never know what can happen. I'd rather just play it safe. So there you go. So that was my first profit target. Next one was this 158, 160 level. As we started to breach through this 147 with some really nice volume, like second highest volume candle of the day compared to this first one, we got some great follow through. Put a sell limit order out here at $1.54, which is right about there. Got filled as we broke up and kind of tested this level. It was a little bit of rejection there. Was really hoping to see the level of 147 then act as an area of support as it started to pull back, but we didn't quite get that. We just got this kind of pullback and this really nasty selling pressure that came in. I think that's where a lot of the shorts went ahead and jumped in, and I was really hoping to see this gap fill hold. So if we just kind of jump back to the daily chart for a quick second, was looking for this level right here to hold as support and just hold that gap, but we couldn't. That was a sign of weakness in my opinion. So I hopped out and took my last piece of profit off. So the last 25% I took off at 146, so just below this level here. So that was the first trade right there. And it was a beauty trade. It netted me a nice profit and a nice return on my percentage gains on this particular trade. So very happy with that. As the stock continued to pull back through the morning into the lunch, through the late morning into the lunch session, we got this attempt to break down further through the morning lows, and we couldn't really do that because the volume just wasn't there in order to facilitate that to happen. And I think the shorts that jumped into this were getting maybe a little frustrated as we came up and retested VWAP. Maybe they got short here again, retested, couldn't quite do it. Buyer stepped in, pushed us back up, and we just consolidated through this range, this like 10-cent range, all through lunch into the power hour session. As we approached 3 o'clock, this is where it started to get a little interesting to me, and this is why I jumped back into it. Saw at $1.36, I think it was. There was a big bidder out there, and I think it was a short who was trying to cover his position, and I think he was just stuck, and I started to feel a little bit of pressure to close that position because we're up, we're holding this large gap up, this I think it was like a 10% move just in the morning alone from the previous day's close up to here. That's a 30% move down to the lows. Down to the lows from the close was 13%. So, 13% gap up from the lows. That's a really strong day. And I think they started to feel a little uncomfortable heading into the power hour session and into the after hour session holding size. And I think we got one guy stuck, maybe a couple, and I started to see like a 1.2 million share bidder trying to cover, and this is where we squeezed him, and that was essentially the trigger for the next move in the power hour session. This is the last half hour of the day actually. So I went ahead and jumped back into this thing at $1.39, just in front of this resistance level at 140, and that was mainly because I saw this bidder here sitting trying to cover, and I was like, obviously this is going to squeeze. It felt really squeezy at the end of the day. Just felt like all the right sauce was there to make that happen. And we just continued up on nice increase in volume as we broke up through that 140 level and into the close. And I believe I took my first profit off at 146 again, just right in front of this resistance level. So took off 50% right there on this candle right there. Oops, can't see it. Right there. 146, right in front of that resistance level. As we pushed up into the close, I decided that I was going to hang on to the 50% of my position size and swing it overnight. And that's when we started to get this after hour squeeze. So I'm going to throw on my post-market data. And then we just exploded in this after hour session. And the next obvious profit target area was this 156. So I took some off there at 156. I think it was right on this candle, right there on that red candle. And we got up, tested it, pulled back into the trade line. We got this beautiful trade line support, and this is what you want to see when you have momentum in a stock is, if you're moving to the upside, this EMA will act as an area of support, hopefully. So when you get these pullbacks, you want to look for that EMA to act as support. If you break down below it, typically that's a sign of weakness and, of a change in direction on the stock, but we didn't do that. We just held it beautifully through this entire almost 45 minutes of the after hour session, then just exploded to the upside. So I felt compelled to take a little bit more profit off. So I took another 25% off at 174, which was right there on that candle. And then we got this rejection, and that 181 I think is our new high, or 180, 181. Tried to breach it here as well. So this 180, I'm going to actually mark that on this chart here. This is our new resistance level to look at tomorrow, moving into the pre-market session in the morning. So, again, full entry here, full size. Stop loss on this trade was actually just below this 136 level, 135, 134, somewhere in that zone. 50%, 25. I think I took 5% off here. I don't know why. I just felt like I wanted to at least take a little profit off at this level. And then so now I think I have about 15% left, or something like that, 18%, something like that left to swing into the session tomorrow morning. So hopefully what I'm looking for is a gap up above this 181, and maybe we get this 181 as a support level and consolidate above that tomorrow. We'll see what happens. Hope you guys found that helpful. If you did, throw me a like, subscribe to the channel, and check out my upcoming reviews on this. We'll have to close this trade out tomorrow. If you're interested in learning how to trade like this and learning a new skill set when it comes to trading, I know there's so many different styles and techniques to trade. Everything that I've learned and how I've been able to grow as a trader has been through my trading group, which is True Trading Group. So just a quick little shout out to them. I will throw my affiliate link in the description below, where you can click that link and get a pretty good sized discount on an annual subscription to True Trading Group. This is a full educational platform with full educational access. So they give you everything from training courses on beginner, intermediate, and advanced level techniques, from trading stocks to options and everything in between. We have some fantastic moderators. So it's just a great community, very positive energy, and a positive team to trade with every day. So I love it, and I wouldn't trade literally without them. So thanks so much. Appreciate you guys sticking around, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace out.